The 1980s, a decade of bold engineering and unstoppable machines. Some tractors from that era were forgotten by time, but not defeated. Decades later, they still roar to life, plowing, pulling, and proving that real power never fades. These are the 10 forgotten legend tractors from the 1980s that refused to die. Built tough, tested by time, remembered by those who know what real machinery is made of. Number 1. David Brown, 1490. The 1980s were tough years for farmers across the world. Machinery was changing, technology was creeping in, and many old brands were struggling to keep up. But amid that transformation, one machine stood its ground, the David Brown 1490. Built between 1980 and 1985 in the heart of Yorkshire, England, the 1490 was more than just a tractor. It was a symbol of British grit, strong, stubborn, and made to fight through anything. With its 3.6-liter four-cylinder diesel engine pushing around 80 horsepower, this machine wasn't about speed or luxury, it was about endurance. Farmers called it the British Bulldog, because, like the animal, it didn't know the meaning of surrender. Whether it was plowing muddy fields in spring or pulling heavy loads in the cold winters, the 1490 refused to stop. The best part? It didn't need complicated electronics or sensors. Everything was mechanical, from the gearbox to the hydraulic system, meaning even if something went wrong, a wrench and a bit of skill could bring it back to life. The quiet cab was another feature ahead of its time, offering decent comfort without losing the tractor's rugged identity. Inside that metal box, thousands of farmers spent their days, with diesel fumes in the air and trust in their machines. Today, decades later, the 1490 is still working in small farms across the UK and Europe. Some have been repainted, rebuilt, or customized, but their soul remains untouched. David Brown as a company may have vanished, but the 1490 refuses to die. It stands as a reminder of a time when machines were honest, when tractors were built by engineers, not software. It was a workhorse then, and for many farmers it still is. The 1490 didn't just survive the years, it conquered them. Number 2. White 135. In a decade ruled by giants, one tractor stood out in both strength and spirit. The White 135. Released in the late 1970s and ruling through the 1980s, it was a machine that didn't just perform, it endured. Its heart was a 7.8-liter six-cylinder Hercules diesel engine, producing about 135 horsepower. But it wasn't the numbers that made the 135 legendary, it was the character. The sound of its low, deep idle could be heard across miles of farmland, announcing that serious work was about to begin. The tractor's build quality was unlike anything else of its time. The frame was pure cast iron, the drivetrain was near bulletproof, and its powershift transmission gave smooth yet powerful control over heavy loads. Farmers said it could pull the sun out of the sky, and they weren't exaggerating. Even after decades of hard work, many White 135s still run daily. You'll find them across rural America, worn, scratched, but alive. Their paint might have faded, but the strength under the hood is the same as it was 40 years ago. What made this tractor truly special was its honesty. There were no computers, no digital screens, no unnecessary luxury, just steel, fuel, and faith. And that's exactly why farmers trusted it. It never overpromised, and it never underdelivered. White Farm Equipment as a brand eventually faded into history. But the 135 outlived it, a silver giant that simply refused to give up. It became a legend not because it was perfect, but because it was unstoppable. Even today, when it fires up and rolls out into the fields, it carries with it a sound, the sound of the 1980s when machines were built for men who worked the land, not just drove over it. Number 3. Same Explorer 80. When people think of Italy, they think of Ferrari and Lamborghini. But during the 1980s, another Italian machine was turning heads, not on highways, but in the fields. It was the same Explorer 80, a tractor that earned respect through sweat, dust, and sheer dependability. SAME, short for Società Comandita Motori. Endothermici was famous for building tractors that could survive anything, and the Explorer 80, launched in the early 1980s, was one of its proudest creations. Powered by an 80-horsepower air-cooled diesel engine, it brought something different to the table. No radiators, no coolant systems, just simple air-cooled design that made overheating almost impossible. This innovation turned the Explorer 80 into a legend across Europe. It was lightweight yet powerful, ideal for vineyards, hilly terrains, and rocky fields where larger tractors struggled. Farmers appreciated its direct steering, excellent visibility, and fuel efficiency, all while being built like a tank. But the real beauty of the same Explorer was its maintenance simplicity. You didn't need a workshop or computers to keep it running. A few hand tools and mechanical know-how were all it took. That's why, even today, you'll find these machines still grinding away in Italy, Spain, and parts of Africa. The Explorer wasn't designed for comfort or glamour. It was designed to survive. Its boxy cab, rattling panels, and roaring air-cooled engine gave it character. It was loud, unapologetic, and unstoppable. Farmers loved it for one reason: it never quit. Rain, heat, or time itself couldn't slow it down. The same Explorer 80 became the unsung hero of European farming, a machine that proved Italian engineering wasn't just about beauty, it was about bravery. Number 4. Ursus 1224. While Western manufacturers were chasing comfort and style, Eastern Europe was building something else entirely: machines that could survive hell. And among them stood one that became a legend in its own right, the Ursus 1224. Built in Poland during the early 1980s, the Ursus 1224 was a 120-horsepower beast, powered by a 6-cylinder Zetor diesel engine. It was massive, tough, and unbothered by the rough conditions it worked in. Muddy fields, freezing winters, rocky hills, it faced them all without complaint. This wasn't a luxury tractor. It was a tank disguised as a farm machine. The design was brutally simple. No fancy curves, just thick steel, big tires, and mechanical strength. Everything about it screamed durability. Farmers across Eastern Europe relied on the 1224 because it could handle extreme workloads day after day. Its transmission was solid, its clutch unbreakable, and its hydraulic system nearly indestructible. Maintenance was straightforward, and spare parts were easy to source. Even when political and economic challenges hit Poland, the Ursus 1224 kept the farms alive. It became the backbone of rural survival, a silent partner to farmers who couldn't afford to fail. Today, over 40 years later, these tractors are still found running across Poland, Romania, and Ukraine. Many are restored, some modified, but all carry the same iron soul they were born with. The Ursus 1224 might not be famous like a John Deere or a Ford, but among those who worked with it, it's a legend, one that never needed global fame to prove its worth. This Polish powerhouse didn't just resist time, it defied it. Number 5. Renault 103-54. In the rolling farmlands of France during the 1980s, one tractor carried the hopes of thousands of farmers, the Renault Punter 103-54. Painted in its iconic orange, this machine wasn't about luxury or fame. It was about doing the job, day after day, season after season. The 103-54 came fitted with a Perkins 6-cylinder diesel engine, producing just over 100 horsepower. It was smooth, efficient, and nearly unbreakable. While other tractors of the decade relied on fancy technology, Renault focused on what farmers actually needed: power, simplicity, and dependability. Its gearbox was a masterpiece of engineering, precise, strong, and easy to maintain. And its hydraulic system was one of the most reliable in Europe at the time. That's why you could see these tractors pulling heavy trailers, plowing deep fields, and powering through endless hours of work without skipping a beat. But what made the 103-54 truly special was its longevity. Even after the Renault agricultural division was sold to Claas, these tractors didn't fade away. They kept running. In fact, many farmers still rely on their old 103-54s today. Across rural France, you'll still find them parked beside barns, paint faded, decals worn. but engines ready to roar at the twist of a key. Some have logged over 10,000 working hours, and yet they start like new. The Renault H488 never tried to be the biggest or strongest. It simply did what it was built to do: work hard and never die. It represented the quiet, dependable heart of European agriculture, a machine that didn't care about trends or branding. Even after Renault's name disappeared from tractor showrooms, the H488 carried its legacy forward, not in museums, but in fields, a true underdog that outlived its brand and outperformed expectations. Number 6. Steyr 8150. If there's one word that describes the Steyr 8150, it's precision. Built in Austria during the early to mid-1980s, this tractor represented everything Europe stood for: quality, durability, and attention to detail. The 8150 packed a 6-cylinder turbocharged diesel engine, pushing out around 150 horsepower. It wasn't just strong, it was smartly engineered. Every component, from its gearbox to its hydraulics, was designed to work in harmony, delivering power exactly where it was needed. What made the Steyr 8150 truly stand out was its unshakable build quality. Farmers often joked that you could drop one off a cliff and it would still start when it hit the ground. That might sound exaggerated, but the point was clear. These machines were built to last forever. The Steyr was especially loved by farmers in Austria, Germany, and Switzerland. In mountain regions where other tractors struggled for traction, the 8150's balanced frame and torque-heavy engine made it unbeatable. Its cab was also ahead of its time, spacious, quiet, and surprisingly comfortable for such a tough machine. Even after decades of service, many of these tractors are still fully operational, pulling plows, hauling logs, or helping in heavy transport. And when something does break, the design is so simple that most parts can be replaced without specialized tools. The Steyr 8150 was more than just a tractor. It was a testament to Austrian craftsmanship, built by engineers who believed machines should serve generations, not just owners. Today, collectors and farmers alike hunt for the 8150, not just for nostalgia, but because it's still one of the few tractors from the 1980s that can compete with modern machines. Time tried to age it. Farmers tried to wear it out, but the 8150 refused to surrender. It wasn't just built to work, it was built to endure. Number 7. Fiatagri 18090 Turbo. In the 1980s, Italy wasn't just building fast cars, it was also building one of the most powerful tractors of the decade. The Fiatagri 18090 Turbo wasn't just a workhorse, it was a full-blown torque monster. Under its bold orange and white exterior lay an 8.1-liter 6-cylinder turbocharged diesel engine, capable of producing around 180 horsepower. That might sound modest by modern standards, but back then it was jaw-dropping power for a farm tractor. This machine was designed for heavy-duty work, deep plowing, heavy towing, and long working hours in brutal conditions. Farmers often described it as a tractor that thought it was a tank, and they weren't wrong. The 18090 Turbo came with a 4WD system that gave it incredible traction, allowing it to work in muddy fields, hilly terrains, and clay soil without hesitation. Its transmission was rock solid, and its turbo engine produced a deep, aggressive sound that became its signature. But perhaps what made the Fiatagri 18090 unforgettable was its build philosophy: simplicity, strength, and serviceability. It didn't rely on electronics or software. It relied on thick metal, diesel, and determination. Farmers could easily maintain it themselves, which was crucial in rural regions. Decades later, these tractors are still popular across Europe, South America, and the Middle East. Many are still in full-time service, plowing massive fields or hauling trailers that weigh more than the tractor itself. The Fiatagri 18090 Turbo was the definition of Italian power done right. Passionate, loud, and unbreakable. It's not just a tractor that worked, it's one that made farmers feel proud every time it fired up. Even after 40 years, when one of these monsters starts up and that turbo whistles to life, it still sends a message across the land. The king of torque has not yet retired. Number 8. Hurlimann H488. From the land of mountains and precision watches came another legend, the Hurlimann H488. Built in Switzerland between 1980 and 1985, this tractor was the definition of Swiss craftsmanship, engineered for perfection, built for forever. The H488 was powered by a 3.9-liter four-cylinder diesel engine, producing around 85 horsepower. But horsepower wasn't what defined this tractor. It was the engineering quality, the kind you could feel in every gear shift, every bolt, every sound of that diesel heart. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't loud, but it was unbelievably reliable. Farmers across Europe quickly realized the H488 could take anything nature threw at it: snow, cold, hills, rain, or long workdays. And when it came to maintenance, it was a dream. Its design was simple and accessible, meaning even local mechanics could keep it running perfectly. The Hurlimann brand never aimed for mass production. It focused on building quality over quantity, and that's exactly why so many H488s still exist today. You'll find them in Switzerland, Germany, and Austria, still pulling, still hauling, still proving that age doesn't slow down real machines. Its transmission was buttery smooth, and its balance on steep slopes made it a favorite in mountainous regions. Farmers trusted it not because it was powerful, but because it was dependable. It never betrayed them, even after thousands of hours of use. Eventually, Hurlimann merged with Steyr and Deutz-Fahr, becoming part of a larger corporate family. But the H488 remains a timeless icon of an era when Swiss engineering wasn't just about luxury watches, it was about tractors that could last a lifetime. This tractor didn't just refuse to retire, it never learned how to stop working. Number 9. Valmet 905. When it comes to pure endurance, very few machines can stand beside the Valmet 905. Born in the harsh winters of Finland in the early 1980s, this tractor was designed not in boardrooms or marketing departments, but in fields, forests, and freezing conditions, where survival meant reliability. The Valmet 905, produced between 1983 and 1988, came with a 6.0-liter Perkins diesel engine, producing around 105 horsepower. It wasn't the most powerful tractor of its time, but it was one of the most reliable. Finnish engineers understood that farming in the north wasn't about luxury. It was about machines that could start in the coldest mornings, push through deep snow, and never give up. And that's exactly what the Valmet 905 delivered. Farmers across Scandinavia loved it for its unbreakable engine, excellent 4WD system, and smooth gearbox. It could handle both fieldwork and forestry with equal strength, plowing through frozen ground in winter and hauling heavy logs from thick forests in summer. The cab design was simple but comfortable, with insulation built to handle sub-zero temperatures. Every piece of metal, every bolt, felt like it was carved with precision and purpose. You could feel the strength the moment you turned the key. What made the Valmet 905 so special, even decades later, was how little it demanded. It didn't need electronics, sensors, or constant care, just diesel, oil, and determination. That's why, 40 years later, so many of these machines are still in operation, working daily across Northern Europe and even parts of Canada. The Valmet 905 wasn't about showing off. It was about showing up every day, in every condition. It's a tractor that earned respect, not through power, but through persistence. In a world of disposable machinery, the 905 became proof that true durability doesn't just survive time, it defies it. The Finnish workhorse never slept, it just kept going. Number 10. Landini 14500. The final legend on our list takes us back to Italy, a country famous for passion, design, and power. But this time, it's not a Ferrari or a Ducati. It's the Landini 14500, a tractor that blended Italian craftsmanship with raw endurance. Built in the 1980s, the Landini 14500 carried a 6.0-liter Perkins diesel engine, producing roughly 145 horsepower. It wasn't just a machine, it was a masterpiece of simplicity. Every part of this tractor, from its heavy-duty gearbox to its cast-iron chassis, was built to last decades, not years. Farmers across Europe loved the Landini 14500 for one main reason: it could handle anything. Long days in scorching heat, muddy harvest seasons, steep vineyards, it never faltered. The engine ran smooth and steady, and the gearbox was so strong it could take punishment for years without complaint. The cab wasn't luxurious, but it offered what farmers valued most: comfort and visibility. You could sit in that seat for 12 hours straight, watching the world pass by through the glass panels, as the rhythmic hum of the Perkins diesel reminded you that this machine was built to work, not to rest. Even after 40 years, the Landini 14500 remains a favorite among collectors and working farmers alike. Many still run their original engines with over 15,000 hours logged, a figure that would make modern machines tremble. It was more than a tractor, it was a partner. One that didn't demand perfection, only fuel and faith. It represents a time when Italian engineering meant longevity, not luxury. When every machine was built with pride, not planned obsolescence. The Landini 1450 doesn't belong in a museum. It belongs in a field, doing what it was born to do, work without limits. And that's why, even decades later, it remains one of the true forgotten legends, the Italian giant that simply refused to die. They were built in the 1980s, but their engines still echo today, a reminder that true craftsmanship stands the test of time. Which one of these living legends impressed you the most? Tell me in the comments below. If you love classic tractors, forgotten machines, and stories of unstoppable engineering, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more. Thanks for watching, and remember, legends don't retire, they just keep on running.